Hello and welcome to the Canyons Are Calling podcast. I'm Cheryl Jocelyn, your host for this show. Before we get into our awesome interview today, I just want to shout out to my Patreon members. Because of my Patreon supporters, I have decided to support the Ouray Canyoneering Festival, so I'm one of their sponsors this year. And I think I might be having a little booth to sell some beer glasses and other merchandise. And then one of the nights at the community festival, I will also be there recording live podcasts. So if you want to be on the podcast, tell one of your favorite canyon stories, and you're going to be in Ouray August 10th through the 14th, find me at the community center. And I'm super excited about that. I haven't been to Ouray since 2019. And the water level was really high then. So hoping for great weather and great water levels and great canyoneering for sure. If you want more information about the Ouray Canyoneering Festival, go to ouraycanyonfestival.org. And that's where you can sign up. They're having a early bird registration right now. So if you sign up now, it's going to be a little less expensive than it will be probably next month. So I'm not sure when the early bird registration ends, but I do know that it's going on right now. So if you're listening, like when the podcast launches, the middle of May, go ahead and jump on and get registered. Hope to see you there. Okay, so I also want to thank everybody who came out to my skills day this last weekend. I usually try to do one in the spring and in the fall, and they're a lot of fun. We practice ascending, sand traps, fiddlesticks. This time we practiced belay from the top. We practiced tandem rappelling. When it got too hot, we practiced knots in the shade. And then we ate tacos and drank beer, and it was awesome. The next day we practiced sand trap rappels in a canyon. It was really fun. One of the secret little canyons that I know about down southern Utah, where we did 7 sand traps and 1 fiddlestick. It was really, really cool. Thanks to everybody who came out to that and made delicious tacos for everybody. That was a lot of fun. So now getting into today's episode, I have with us the founder of Canyon Adventures and some of his partners, Dean, Kevin, and Galen. And Canyon Adventures is a company out of California that takes Homeboys Industries and some ex-convicts, which is ex-gang members, ex-convicts, out into the canyons and just teaches them a love and respect for the wilderness and for canyoneering and just a different appreciation for life. And as somebody who, canyoneering has also transformed my life. And when I was a guide, I saw it transform so many other people throughout the day. And so when Galen reached out to me about this company and about having them on the podcast, I was really excited to share their story because I think that it is really important to get people outdoors. And this company provides that opportunity for people who would never be able to get out and do these canyons, gets them out there and shows them appreciation and love for it. And I think that that's just going to trickle down for generations. So I was really excited to share this organization's story and their mission. And if you would like more information about them, go ahead and look them up. It's canyonadventures.org. They're in Southern California. And if you are in the Southern California area, they're going to be doing a training coming up here in May 28th and 29th. So if you'd like more information about the training day, you can get a hold of Dean. Email him at dean@canyonadventures.org, and he can give you more information about that training day. We talk a little bit about the training day in the episode. We also talk about the importance of practice, and keeping those skills fresh in your memory, practicing with good mentors and friends. So on with the episode. Enjoy. Okay, so tonight we have on with us Dean, Kevin, and Galen from Canyon Adventures out of California, and they are here to tell us more about what their organization stands for and what they do. So, Dean, let's introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into the outdoors and canyoneering.
Thank you. Starting the outdoors as a kid, of course, loved the outdoors on horseback and everything. But then I fell in love with a sport called canyoneering. And it really took me to places that I never thought I could go before. And I started sharing that experience with, different people and with my church group and whatnot. And that's really kind of how Canyon Adventures got formed. We were taking out some guys from Celebrate Recovery. And with that group, everybody's having a great time. Of course, they're learning new experiences. But one of the gentlemen, and I knew the story about he and his son, they were kind of estranged. He was about 50, his son was early 30s. And he showed him some pictures of the event that, they just all did. And he was like, hey, it was so cool. The story about me and my son, could you take us on a trip? So about 2 weeks later, they went on a trip. And it was unbelievable how good they were getting along and how much fun they were having and high-fiving each other. And it's like, I knew the background story here. It just didn't make any sense that they could get along this great. And then that night I got a phone call after everybody went home and did everything. And the father was just, we were both in tears. Because of the healing that happened that day. And I met with my small group at church the following week, and we're talking about it because some of those guys were on the trip. And we're talking about kind of the healing powers of the outdoors and how cool that was. And I just made kind of an offhanded comment to the group, wouldn't it be cool to form a nonprofit and, do something to where we could raise funds for other nonprofits and do guided tours, and then also take different groups that are at risk, out to do it. And the group of gentlemen that I was talking to were like, well, why don't you do it? And it was like, well, I can't set up a 501c3. I'm not an attorney. I couldn't do all the legal paperwork. And then there's a website and all these different things. And I knew the group I was speaking to, but immediately the attorney in the group was like, I have this, and everybody was jumping in. And before we knew it, Canyon Adventures was formed, and we started kind of down that mission and what we do. And since that time, Galen has come on and Kevin, because, we need people that are technically sound, not just people with good intentions. But it was really kind of cool. They really stepped up. They formed the 501c3. They did everything. And as they're doing all that, they're like, so what are you going to do? Because they really took all of my roadblocks off. So then that's when I decided I need to go get certified as a guide and really kind of fulfill that portion of it. So that's how we're founded. And I'll turn it over to Galen. He can kind of talk about our mission and where it's gone from there. But, we do all kinds of nonprofit events now and raise money for people like American Cancer Society and take at-risk groups. So, Galen?
So my name is Galen Okazaki. I grew up playing water polo and swimming, so I wasn't too much in the outdoors. So after college, I got into mountain biking, then got into adventure racing, and then we hit a point where we need to learn rope skills, and that's when I started canyoneering and rock climbing basically at the same time, and totally fell in love with those two sports and kind of dropped my adventure race team and been doing that ever since. As far as my time as the mission statement for Canyon Adventures, I think our heart is to, we definitely can see what a transformative force that bringing people to the outdoors can be, and wanting to bring that to populations of people who may not have the means to get out, and so one of the things, and I know Kevin and Dee can comment on this, when we take a lot of these men and women out, the only time, so a lot of them have never been hiking before, and those have been hiking in California, they use people who are incarcerated, both the juveniles and the adults, to fire break for forest fires. And so the people who have been hiking, that's the only time they've been out is when they are incarcerated and digging fire lines. And that's the extent of their hiking experience. And so certainly the first time I went out with a group and started talking to these, it was primarily men, the first group, talking to these guys, and realized that's their only hiking experience. So, taking them from that experience of being incarcerated, digging fire breaks, to, hey, we're going to put you in a rope and we're going to put you through a waterfall. It's a whole 180. Exactly. It was an amazing experience. And that's really our mission, is to bring people out. And then it's really remarkable to me, the change, because after we take them out, we'll go out to eat afterwards, and listening to these stories of these guys, and I'm sure we'll talk about more later, is just super transformative. And for me, it's like, it's a great, fantastic way to give back doing what I love anyway. It's twist my arm, I got to go do a canyon this weekend, So for me, it's kind of the best of both worlds to help support the mission for Canyon Adventures.
That's really cool. Okay, Kevin, how about you?
I grew up in the mountains in Southern California. I grew up racing, skiing, and hiking and backpacking and rock climbing as well. I was actually researching a trip to do snake dike on Half Dome and was looking up trip reports, and I stumbled across this trip report on a website called Canyoneering USA. And it was Tom Jones's trip report this is back 2008 or something. And I was like, what is this website? So I go on there and see a picture of Pine Creek, and I'm like, all right, scrap the plans. We're doing this. And I just happened to have a friend that did search and rescue with Sonny Lawrence, and he gave us a list of skills, and we just went out and practiced them all. I didn't know there was formal training then. I just trolled all the websites and looked at all the debates, single rope, double rope, go out there and make my decisions for myself. So just basically been doing that since 2007, I guess, almost 2008. And just to happen to meet Dean with help teaching a course at Rich Carlson. We started talking about his nonprofit, and I was already doing free training sessions and stuff on the weekends just for the community to get out. Skills are perishable. You don't use them, you lose them. So I was always already trying to give back to the community that way, and just to encourage people to get out and train. And then, it just kind of blossomed, and, Dean's like, well, go get your guide cert. So I went to the regiment and, became an ACA pro guide that way. So.
Very cool. So where exactly is Canyon Adventures located in California?
So we're in Southern California, and that's where we have permits, from the Forest Service to guide. Any further than that would be too far for us.
Okay, awesome. And tell us some of the stories about some of the adventures that you've been on. I know I was only a guide for a few years, but I feel like the transformation of the people throughout the day in a canyon was way more worth the paycheck that I got.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely.
And I'm sure that these people that are coming from a more diverse background, that's going to be even bigger change, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you the lay of the land on how the people that come to us, because it's two different distinct groups. So we have the one, which was like Homeboy Industries, which is a group that gets people in and out of the gang system. So it's homeboys and homegirls. So that's one group. ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition. That group is convicted violent felons. They were minors, but they were convicted as adults, and they're extremely high functioning. They come out and they have a mission to serve. They're really unbelievable. But then we have the nonprofit events where we raise money from like American Cancer Society. We just did one for CGA, their educational foundation, and different nonprofits like that. And that group, it's usually 40, 50-year-olds, and they'll bid on a live auction item at a charity gala. They don't really even know what they're bidding on, but they spend, $1,600 to $2,500 is kind of where it goes. And then we take a group of 8 people out. And so you get a mix of 40 to 60-year-olds, mainly 40, 50s, but sometimes into their 60s. And a lot of these people are literally from the couch to the canyon. So it really sets up some very diverse things, and they all have different learning. I think we kind of have a sweet spot in our hearts just because of the stories that the people that have been incarcerated and how their lives have changed so much. And I'll let them touch on it. But as an example, the first time we took out Homeboy, which was one of the first groups that we partnered with, the lead guy for Homeboy, and he's been with them ever since, he was in and out of the system, and now he's, doing a lot of good things. But now his whole world is outdoors. He loves going river rafting. He went to Mount Whitney. He's done canyoneering. His whole life has changed. The way he looks at things is completely different. And to be a part of that, however small part it is, it's just cool to be able to do that for men and women, and to get people past their fears. I mean, when they go with us, they'll do 6 rappels. One of them's close to 100 foot, and one of them straight in a waterfall. And it's their first day. And the trust level they have for all of us, and they have for each other at the end of the day, is pretty amazing. But I'll let Galen and Kevin kind of share some of their stories.
Well, I definitely say the rewards are definitely more than the paycheck because we all volunteer 100% of our time. But that's not to take away from what it is. It has been extremely rewarding, just as Dean mentioned. You know, all of us that are in the outdoors, we're there for a reason. It's therapeutic. It makes us feel alive. You know, there's more to life than just sitting at a desk and doing work. And, you know, it's our therapy. And if we can bring that kind of joy to other people, I mean, with any kind of guiding, it's that way. But for a lot of the people that we're taking out, it means a lot more than that. Took a guide group out about 6 months ago. I can't remember. With ARC, and you know, one of the guys there, he's 27 years, you know, incarcerated, and he's out and he's learning coding, and they're very adamant about, you know, getting their group out and on the right path. And you know, he couldn't believe he'd never been to the mountains before. He kind of seen him in the distance through the smog. He's like, yeah, that's what those things are through the smog. And then he comes up there and he just thought never in a million years he'd even have the opportunity to do something like that. And for him, it was just more, well, there's more than just, his focus was just job, family. But he's realizing that he can actually have a full life and be able to get just enjoyment and maybe even bring his family and get them out. And he was asking questions about camping. Yeah, that sounded horrible, but I don't know. My mind might be a little changed now. And just in the trust, like they come out in groups, and a lot of them really don't know each other, and they definitely build some camaraderie. You know, we've had some team skill building with some companies before. You know, it's just to share the experience. You know, you're helping everybody, and you know, to see other people in an uncomfortable situation and they rally around each other is just, it's very rewarding. It's just a great feeling. And I mean, that's why I do it. It takes some time and a lot of effort, but it's definitely worth it.
So my favorite story was the last time we took ARC out before COVID shut us down. We had a dude who was incarcerated for 20 plus years. And he did great when we were out in the canyon, really enjoyed himself. And when we went out to eat after the canyon, he shared that his dad, he shared his story. His dad was law enforcement, and it was a really big deal for him to get incarcerated, and you know how he had a really bad relationship with his family, and how he didn't trust anybody. And at that point, he kind of looks at, I was me or Dean, and was like, I love you guys. You guys are my brothers. You know, he's never trusted anybody with anything. And he's like, I don't know how you got me to get on the stupid harness and dangle me off a cliff in a waterfall. And you know, you could tell he was still kind of processing what just happened to him. And it's that kind of really cool transformative experiences that, like, why I love being a part of this organization and kind of supporting our mission and our program, is just to be able to bring that to people who, you know, would have, and you know, another part was he had no idea what canyoneering was. I mean, I think they gave him a little blurb, but 90% of them we get through had no idea what we're actually doing, other than we're going to be out in the dirt somewhere and hiking around. But so, you know, especially when we put them on the first waterfall, their eyes get real big and they get real funny at the end. So it's a fantastic
thing. You get a lot of the we're going where?
For sure.
Right. Yeah, one of my favorite stories when I was guiding this, we were in Rock Canyon, and you kind of had to like get in. It was a really short rappel, but you had to like get in and swing over a little bit before you went down because of the anchor was in a weird place. They have since moved that anchor and put some bolts in, which I'm kind of torn about, but for the guiding situation, it makes it easier. But she was in tears. Ballerina, her whole life had been controlled, but now she has to not be in control. She has to let the rope be in control and trust that the guide is going to not let her fall, right? And she's crying. And then later in the canyon, we do a 120-foot rappel. And after 4 rappels, we do this big one, and then we do another short one. In the middle of the two, we have a flash flood. Her friends, the son of the friend is completely freaked out because all of the aluminum on our belts, right?
So we take all of our gear off, we stand under a safe tree, we start singing songs about sunshine, we're completely out of the way of the water. We wait for everything to calm down. And as we're driving out, I was like, so what was your favorite part of the day? Trying to make conversation, right? And the girl who was terrified on the first really short rappel said, the 120-foot rappel, that was so amazing. It was incredible to look down the canyon and be above the trees. And the little boy who was terrified during the flash flood said, the lightning was so cool. Yeah, that was one of my favorite guiding experiences in transformation for sure.
Yeah, they're great experiences for sure.
And one thing that we do too, and it's really with all of our events, we ask everyone to join us at Mount Baldy Lodge afterwards for food and festivities, and we let them know it's a great place for them to see pictures that we'll email them and whatnot, because we always have a team photographer kind of hanging off of certain falls to catch a good shot. And that's where really a lot of this good dialogue comes, because you're busy in the canyon, and I'm busy guiding, and everybody's doing their different tasks, right? Kevin's or Galen, but it's having that time and that dialogue with people. And it doesn't matter. I mean, we took out Gelson's Supermarket is a very high-end grocery retailer in Southern California, and they won a deal. It was an auction item at a gala through the Boy Scouts. So the money went to the Scouts, and we took them out as a team building. But it's just great to hear different stories, and this is one of those situations where they hadn't been hiking, and I got people 50s to 60s in this group. Some of them were flipping terrified, but it really is kind of a cool spot to be able to talk with them afterwards, and if you enjoy a cold beer like myself and Kevin, have a beer and whatnot. But that kind of makes it a lot of fun too.
Galen likes a nice cold shot of milk.
We all have our favorites. So describe the canyon that you're typically taking people through.
So the number one that we do is San Antonio Falls, which is by Mount Baldy. So there are 6 rappels there. There's 2 rappels that are pretty tricky. One, it's flat and it goes straight off. So that transition's real hard for new people. So we got to kind of walk them over that edge. But then the 4th rappel is what's really cool. You start off to the side, but you automatically swing underneath the waterfall. And so you're getting pelted. And we have a team photographer that's hanging on another rope off to the side of that. So as you're getting pelted, we get real good close up, like straight across, only 8 feet away. And, we always tell them, give a thumbs up. And they're like, ah.
That's awesome.
And they love it. And it's a very controlled spot. It's a pretty easy entrance, pretty easy exit, so we're not expecting people to slug themselves a long ways. And we do a ground school first, so they get used to the systems that we have in place and understand, hey, if your t-shirt gets stuck, we're going to convert you to a lower. What does that mean? So they see how those things work. They understand what a fireman belay is. So if you let go, this is what's going to happen. They're going to catch you, but don't let go. But unfortunately, when they're brand new, they let go. And I won't say what groups, but there's a particular group. Every time we take them every year, they let go more than anybody we've ever known. And those guys know who I'm talking about. But so we kind of set that all up. So we do that ground school, so they really get used to all the safety protocols that we have, and any risks, and why we put on helmets and rock fall. And I kind of show them a picture of somebody that got hit in the head with a rock, even with a helmet on, and so it kind of sets the ground a little bit for them. And then we take them up and run through the canyon.
Anything else you want to cover about the canyon adventure side of it?
We do more than just guiding. I guess we can lead into that a little bit.
Yeah. Are you also doing the training and things like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Teaching courses and a handful of other things, free practice days. Dean, you want to talk a little bit about practice and kind of our thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we can start about training and education. So one of the first things is, we've all been through a lot of courses, but we continually practice. These are all skills that are perishable, and not too long ago, Galen and I were at our practice spot, and it's like, Galen, throw whatever you can at me. So he has me do a rescue from the bottom up, and all he does is keep taking away gear from me, right? To make everything as difficult as possible. But it's good because it makes you think, and you never know what could happen if you drop something or what you could come onto. And, I think YouTube is great, but I think a lot of people learn things on there and they don't understand what that system means and what it's really intended for. And you can learn a great system, but that one great system doesn't necessarily apply across all canyons, all spots. And it's really having that toolbox pretty well filled up. So we do teach courses, and we charge for those. And that helps offset, equipment for participants and ropes and insurance and, Forest Service fees and all that. We have one coming up here in Southern California, the 28th and 9th. And we also do free practice days because we want people to be able to come and practice those skills. And we do those as well. But,
is that May 28th and 29th?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And that's on canyoneering Karma.
Okay.
But it's really, I can't emphasize enough, practice, and become an eternal student. And when you've learned all that you can, supplement that, so I got my guide cert, but I still went and did a NFPA course for technical rope rescue to see what, the fire department and search and rescue teams are doing. It's a lot cooler equipment, but I just wanted to see how did that match up with what I learned. And, I learned through Rich Carlson through the ACA, right? And what I walked away is like, cool, everything I learned from Rich is the same stuff there. They just had cooler gear because, they got a helicopter to fly that stuff in. But it was really good and it just kind of validated it. But at the same time, it was a good refresher for me, and I went and took Wolfhour Rescue and Rescue 2, but anything that's across discipline, Kevin and I took an avalanche safety course, and that was his second time that he's done that. But anything that you're doing, it just helps because it brings in more perspectives. And I think that's important because too many people, they take a class or they learn from a buddy and they think they're done. And it just, the more you can learn from more people, and Kevin probably has the most diverse experience of anyone I know, I think the better that is.
I
Yeah,
agree.
totally agree.
I mean, I started out climbing, I've been trad climbing. I originally got in, learning from other people, just like how everyone else does. But I've spent time with, Rich Carlson learning rope rescue. I spent time with Dean, learned from him. I spent a lot of time with the SoCal Grotto, the caver group, how they do things completely different, or not completely different, but they have some efficiencies and ways they do things that I had never seen before, which was great and amazing. That was my first kind of change over into using the frog system, which they all do.
I was just going to say, I really love the caver frog system. Some people say it doesn't apply in all canyon situations, but no. I really like it. I feel like it's more efficient for me.
There's nuances. I recently relocated to Seattle, and I've been meeting and training with the people up here. Sure, I'm a guide and I'm trained in, X, Y, Z, but, there's a lot of humility. Things are different up here, and they have a different, they run under the ICO Pro kind of, basis of teaching. And, here I am, a newbie again, and here I am learning from that group. I spent time with, Tom and Jeremy and out of Arizona, and spent time with Rick Green in Escalante, just learning on the psychology on how to guide, spending a week with him, which is, that's just invaluable information. Not many people have 24, 25 years of experience of guiding to just understand, to take things out of your vocabulary, like never say edge and cliff. And it's take 3 steps back closer to Galen, those little fine nuances that you just can't get from anywhere. So I'm a big proponent in learning from various groups. No one's better than other, but everyone comes from their own backgrounds and has their nuances of experience that you can draw from. And, I know a lot of people like to stay with one clique or an organization, but I encourage everyone to learn more. I was a whitewater kayaker for more than 10 years and spent time in swiftwater rescue too. So it's different. It's a lot of the same curriculum, but applied differently, so big proponent on that.
Yeah, I actually have really enjoyed some of the accident reports that you have put up on the podcast. And I also listened to, I don't know if you heard the Sharp End podcast where she talks about.
She's one of my inspirations for the show. Before I started it, I reached out to Ashley and got some.
Oh yeah, for sure. And she does a great job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. She was really good.
what I appreciate about, some things I walked away from is, first is, people talk a lot about the gear, but all these reports, it's not the gear that's failing. It's human errors, right? We're not talking about beers snapping or ropes tearing or slings. It's so much human error that's going on.
Mhm.
And I just, especially that last accident where I really appreciated you kind of got both sides, both parties that were able to come on and speak. I thought that was really useful for the community to understand some mentality, understanding, and like not knowing what you don't know, right? And like
Right.
I don't. It's not
Exactly.
my intention to bash on parties, but it's like you know, it, going back to what Dean said, YouTube is great, but it does not give a lot of context. And sometimes you just got to get out in the dirt, in the water, on the rock, and see why we're doing. And we have a new guide, and so I've been helping train him, and it's a really interesting process because rather than I'm trying to teach him rather than saying, "Oh no, that's wrong." Like for example, we were working on single point natural anchors, and we are doing a wrap 3 pull 2, and he did a wrap 3 pull 1, and so I said, "Okay," and he went to go undo it. I'm like, no, what, and had to walk through what is the pro, like what does this do versus a single wrap anchor, right? Or and what's the differences? And so and being able to understand and walk through all those nuances, like Kevin was talking about, I think is really important because like again, the other accident report I was thinking about is when the guy was rigged short on the multi-stage rappel and had the other rope, and his party didn't know what else to do, and you start taking off things that you can't do, and it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And being able to leverage all of these technical concepts into very unconventional ways because that's what the situation dictates, right? And I think it's super important because people are getting into these situations and the consequences are really high. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I really believe I think YouTube is fantastic, but I believe in like this one-on-one, get out, put yourself on the rock, put some rope and some beaners on you, and let's figure out why we're doing this. That's not how to do it, but also the context of why
Why?
we're
Yeah.
practicing these techniques and the value of these techniques.
Yeah. I just recently this weekend do a skills day. I do one in the spring and one in the fall. And a girl was a climber and she's kind of new to canyoneering. So she has an ATC and she showed up and that's the gear she had, right? And I always have extra stuff for people to use. But at first she was kind of confronted with, I didn't know people still use those. Why do you have that? Blah, 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 And her friend was confronted with, well, I have this device and this is why we use it in canyoneering. And do you want to try this? And it was friends. They showed up together at the same event, but different groups of people approached them differently and they felt different about the situation. And I do feel like if we approach people that were doing things not wrong but different and explained, like this is why we said a wrap 3 pull 2 instead of just one single thing around
Strand.
the tree, right?
Right.
Or this is why we use critters or other devices that can add friction instead of an ATC. And this is why we, do these other things. I feel like it's received a little better as a whole. And we can all learn from each other for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah,
have this audience,
Oh,
to
yeah.
get that stuff, to get it out. The accident reports, nobody likes to talk about them. And, the blogs on the social media can be kind of harsh. Lately, I think things have been a little better. I think people have been, a lot nicer with their comments and not so judgmental. And to be able to get that information out, I mean, you have an audience now, and that's great. I've always wondered, like, how do I get people to train and practice? And I understand people don't have money. That's why we do the free practice sessions,
Yep.
just to open their eyes a little bit, especially when they're preventable. Because like I was listening to your podcast on the Rock of Ages, and immediately first thing that went in my head is I'm gonna put a rope grab on both ropes, clip it back to the master point, make 2 independent static ropes that she could just rappel on the single line down. I mean, it's just, that was in my head, but someone's not going to think of that if they're not practicing it in the
I didn't
situation.
know. Yeah,
and
simply did not know.
and there's a dozen ways to solve that problem, right? Everyone's debated it online, how they could do that. So one of the things that we always used to pull out in the practice sessions is the accidents. Like, okay, let's go over the rigging. There was a rigging failure on an 8 block that was just rigged really incorrectly, with a couple feet of tail, and it slipped, and unfortunately it was a fatality, and it was completely preventable, and it was very sad. And so with that, it's like, how can we prevent this? This is why rigging is done a specific way, or there are nuances. Maybe in certain situations you would rig something differently, but open people's eyes into there's no one right way, that this is the way you do it all the time, or just because you did it one way 1,000 times doesn't make it right. But
Yeah.
just to try and teach, learn, and educate, because it just it kills me to hear about an accident that was preventable. I mean, sometimes they happen and they're not preventable, and it's extremely unfortunate. We take risks being in the outdoors, but the ones that are, it saddens me.
That brings me another point about this weekend. We were doing a bunch of sand trap rappels, and the one that I rigged a triple clove at the end, and then let off for the meat anchor. And somebody was like, why did you do a triple clove instead of the beaner block or the figure 8 block? Right. And I was like, well, we can't do a contingency anyway, because we don't have any other rope. Like, we have a rescue rope, but we don't have a contingency set up because she's blocking it. So there's no need to set up a figure 8 block.
Right.
If you can't use it.
And I understand
like,
it's,
I didn't think of that.
when you're learning, it is taking information like a fire hose to the face. And I completely understand that. To really, you learn the skill. I just got to learn the skill. And it takes a little time to understand those kind of, like, having those skills days. Like, if you explain that to them when they were originally learning the 8 block, they probably wouldn't remember it. But they're probably going to remember it now because they're taking the time and they're learning an application. And
in canyon skills for sure.
Yeah, and I think especially to the climbing community, because I do both. I've been climbing as long as I've been canyoneering, and so I've taken a number of my climbing friends out, and their experience of rappelling is the throw and glow, right? Like, you reach the top of the pitch, and oh my God, you want me to rappel on one rope, and what the hell are you using, and what are you doing with my rigging? And why is this rope so skinny, and why aren't these anchors? And they're great questions, and I think having that conversation in a non-threatening environment, being like, look, you don't ever put that much force. We don't need 22 kilonewton anchors to rappel down, right? Or, yeah, we can get away with an 8 mil if you can adjust your friction. So, or, yeah, look, put this beaner on your leg loop, or throw 2 beaners through your ATC, and it will put some extra friction. Just give you some ideas of how to do that, right? And I think there's a lot of people who will get it, especially if they've spent enough time to be outdoors and climbing. It's not rocket science, but no one has walked them through that. And that, because I think a lot of people assume canyoneering is just kind of this, there's not a lot of technical proficiencies that are required for this. And there's actually quite a few nuances, especially if you start changing environments. If you go from, down here in Southern California to Utah to Ouray, or out to the Pacific Northwest, you gotta know your stuff. Otherwise,
totally different sports.
Totally get jammed up real bad. So,
yeah, you can never get enough training. And you definitely don't know what you don't know until you figure it out.
or you're in a situation where you realize you don't know what you don't know, and you're get hosed pretty hard.
Yeah. Hopefully we're trying to prevent those.
I think that's the key difference between in-person training and learning stuff on YouTube. On YouTube, you learn that one skill, and hopefully it's correct. And there's plenty of good things on YouTube. But Rich Carlson, if anyone's ever taken a course from them, his favorite 2 words are "it depends," and really that's so important, because it does depend on a lot of different variables, to make sure that the system you're using is appropriate for that. And that's where in person you can have that dialogue and have those exchanges like, yeah, this works great in these applications, but it still depends. But in these applications, this would make sense. And I think that's where, a lot of people that are looking for the quick way, learned a couple things on YouTube or whatever, you lose those nuances that are so critically important in the sport that we all love.
Mm-hmm. Tom has often said, like, if the beta differs from reality, then go with reality, right? So, like, if Lewis and Everett, for example, in Not Imlay, if they would have been like, okay, we really can't see the bottom. The beta says the rappel's 100 feet. We really, I mean, there's trees there, but do we know where it's at? And based it on reality of the situation, then they probably would have set a contingency anchor, because they're the ones that taught me the figure 8 block. You know, and then they would have done things completely different, but they were so adamant on the beta's always been correct, and so this is what we're going to do. They made a fatal mistake that day.
I don't know how many times I've
Yeah,
gone to the canyon edge and seen the webbing around a different tree than typically in the beta, and people see the webbing and they just go. So
this is where it is. There's another story where we were going to do upper and lower granary in Moab, and in my experience, when you do an upper and lower canyon, it's in the same drainage. And so we just kept following the same drainage. And we got to the next rappel, which was supposed to be the first rappel in upper granary. But the rappel did not match the description of the rappel we were looking at. And we were like, well, this is weird. Like, this is not what they had said. And so my friend had recelception and was able to get a hold of a friend who had done the canyon before. And he was like, no, about 200 feet back, you were supposed to go up over the ravine and into the next canyon over, which wasn't clear in the beta that we had read. Nobody caught that. So like all 6 of us had gone downstream. And we noticed we weren't on Gaia, right? And we're looking at the topo, and it's like, this canyon goes, but then there's a major drop right at the road. And we only have a 200-foot rope and a 100-foot rope. And that looks more than
right.
300 feet, like
Right.
from what we're seeing on the topo. And one of our friends had already rappelled down, right? And we're like, no, this isn't right. We don't feel good about this. You need to come back up. And he's like, no, the canyon goes. And I'm like, but what we're looking at on the map here doesn't look good. And then we did find out later that is 360-foot drop. And search and rescue has been called a few times because that thing has happened. So that sucks. And I'm really glad that he was able to ascend back up and come join us. And we just bailed the lower section and went back to the car. But
it happens. I've seen remember the first time I read a trip report of somebody going to Bahoonan and did quote West Bahoonan and ends up in Heaps.
Oh shit!
I remember reading a trip report on Bogley a long time ago that they missed that little cut off of that switchback to cut into Bahoonan and went all the way up and ended up going down.
Wow.
Yeah, it can happen.
I need to find out about that story. That sounds tragically awesome.
Yeah, somebody called it West Bahoonan and I just started laughing. So.
Bahunan's one of my favorites, but I would hate to end up in Heaps by mistake.
Oh, no, thank you.
Totally different ballgame. Wow. All right. Any other favorite canyon stories you want to talk about?
I mean, there's so many good ones. It's hard to separate them all. I mean, they're all just different experiences, different areas. So I'm new to Seattle and I haven't done any canyons up here yet. I'm ready to go here in the next couple of weeks. So I spent time in the Sierras and in Ouray, but not up here. So I'm super excited. But it's just the different terrain, the different people. They all just make the days completely memorable for different reasons. You know, just like whether we're doing the guide day or I'm just out with a group of friends that I don't get to see very often anymore. You know, it gets harder and harder to stay with my initial group of outdoor friends.
And we're excited he's up there so we can come visit in July or August and he'll have everything all mapped out for us.
All of a sudden, I say I'm moving up here, everyone's my best friend. And they're like, hey, you got a place to stay. And I'm like, hey, I got a lot to learn, you know, so don't be too quick, but I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
And the community up here I just have to say, has been extremely accepting and just awesome. As far as learning and just inviting, it's just been really good. I know some areas can be a little clicky, that kind of thing, but I haven't experienced that, so it's really been great.
That's really cool. You'll have to report about Tiffany's cookies and cakes and stuff.
Oh, I've had them. They're great, and I'm lactose intolerant, and I still went for it because they just look great.
This is gonna be worth it for sure.
It's not pretty, Shirls. It really is not pretty when he gets too much dairy.
Anyway, moving on.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, canyoneering makes me really hungry. I don't know if we want to switch into that right after the dairy comment, but what's your favorite in canyon snack? Not cheese for Kevin.
There's a reason. Part of my first aid kit is I do carry lactose pills in there along with everything else. I just keep it for emergencies because sometimes I just don't have any self-control. For me, favorite in canyon snacks are definitely fresh cut pineapple and gummy bears. Those are my two favorite.
Ooh, fresh cut pineapple sounds fresh.
So we had the pineapple. I just spent last weekend in Escalante, and it was warm, and having the fresh cut cold pineapple was just great. So.
That sounds really refreshing. How about you, Dean?
I'm definitely gummy bears or gummy worms. And when I'm guiding, I always carry an extra package because when I pull that out, I know I'm going to lose them. So they go fast.
Nice. Galen.
I am a devotee of Trader Joe's, and their buffalo jerky is fantastic. Super high protein. It's savory, and I could reseal the package if we don't want to eat the whole thing. So it's super fast and great high protein snack. It gets me going pretty quick. Especially if I'm low energy, I'll just slam some of that and we can get going again. But that's my favorite canyon snack. My go-to lunch.
That sounds awesome. Okay, how about after canyon beverage?
Ooh, it changes for me whether it's hot. If I'm in the desert, I like a lager. I'll like, my favorite is a Grolsch, German lager, Pilsner, whatever it is. It's nice, but I do like an IPA if it's a colder canyon. If I'm in the Sierras and the water's cold, and I think that the IPA is.
For me, it doesn't matter if it's hot, cold, or anything. It's always the same. Coors Light. I'm a simple man.
Colorado Kool-Aid for Dean. That's all we need.
My dad was a Coors Light fan. How about you, Galen?
Kevin has a friend named Jared, and he's a dealer for kombuchas, and so he has these super exotic mixes, like flavors, and so I'm always super stoked when he comes because he usually will bring me something super fun. In terms of, it's cold, but otherwise I'll just do water. Like I'm usually pretty thirsty and dehydrated by the time we're done, and just want to slam some water and get my system back online.
He gave us at the last canyon. He gave us it was a hard kombucha, something mimosa. It was a kombucha company from San Diego, and it was just a refreshing. It was magic. I didn't think there was any alcohol in it, but it was 7%. But he always got a cooler of cold brew coffee, kombucha, hard kombuchas ready to go for everybody because he distributes to all the companies and stuff down here.
That's awesome.
He's fantastic. So I always love having him in Canyon. Besides, he's a really nice guy too. But I love the kombucha.
I love kombucha. And where I live, it is so small and rural. Like nobody really even knows what kombucha is. It's kind of coming around. Like some of the grocery stores now carry it, but I brewed my own for a while, and then I lost my SCOBY, and I need to get another one. But anyway, that's it.
What city are you in again?
I live in Kanab, Utah.
Kanab?
The east side of Sweden. Yeah. So it's beautiful, but it's really, really rural. And a little.
That's why it's so beautiful.
Yes. For sure.
So, Cheryl, why did you stop guiding?
Because I started working for Tom.
Oh, so are you
Mostly.
working? Oh, cool. So you're working full time for
So I
Imlay?
managed Imlay Canyon Gear in Canyoneering USA.
Oh, cool.
And so the guide company that I moved to Kanab to work for kind of went under, and I was working for Dreamland and just doing like photography tours, but not canyoneering stuff, and working for Tom, and he just got me on full time, and I love working for him. So before we say goodbye, is there any safety advice that you would like to leave our listeners with?
So as I said earlier, practice, practice, practice with people that know more than you do.
And I'm going to use a steel line Sonny Lawrence told me a long time ago. Skills are perishable. You don't use them, you lose them. So practice, practice, and get some diversity in your training.
And I definitely want to reach out to the people who are taking, I think it's fantastic that Kenya is growing and there's lots of newbies, but I want to reach out to the people who are taking people out, because we've all encountered some interesting stories in there. And just, please know what you don't know, please get some training, especially if you're going to take other people out, even if it's just your one buddy or your girlfriend or whatever. Please get some training and understand, because there's a lot of complexity to the sport that isn't always apparent to somebody who doesn't have a deep understanding of it.
That's well said. Another Tom quote: "Don't be a beginner leading a beginner," because in that situation, you know enough to get people hurt.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
well said.
Oh, yeah. I was remembering one time we were taking a group out, and Dean has them rig up canyon, and I go down to rig, and the San Antonio where we take out has two. The first wrap you can canyon left and canyon right, so I took canyon left, and I was watching some guy hit a ball. I don't know how he did this, but he had a 200-foot rope in a ball, like about the size of a really big soccer ball, and the canyon is bolted, and so there's a 2 bolts, and then the webbing comes down to a Y, and he ran the rope over the wire, the V, instead of putting it through the wrap ring or the rapide. And I went and got Dean. I had him talk to him because I was like, oh my gosh. And this was the most experienced dude. I think they were in Amazon, the cheap Amazon harnesses and beaners and ATCs, and so he talked it over, but he proceeded to throw the ball down, and there's a little pool about 20 feet down, and got stuck in it. And I realized that all of our people would get stuck in their rope, so I had to go down, lock off, and then untangle about 200 feet of rope, or 180 feet of rope out of this pool.
Oh my gosh.
It's not very happy.
Some
So
crazy
please,
stuff guiding.
yeah. So please don't do that.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff that I'm just like, I need to get out of here now because my blood's boiling and I'm gonna explode.
Or I'm gonna have to do a rescue soon, and I don't want to do that right now.
Right. This lady was coming down Elves Chasm, and not Elves Chasm. It's the Dragon's Lair in Goblin Valley, and she has a dog in her backpack. She's spinning. She has no helmet on. The rope was thicker than my thumb. Like, it had to have been at least 10, 11 mil. I have no idea what kind of rope this was. And there were kids up there. So I was like, if these kids come down without helmets on, I'm going to lose my shit. And we've had a pretty great day. So I should probably just leave right now. And I don't know.
It's tough to know when to say something and when not
Yeah.
to, and how to approach it to where hopefully it's not
Right.
taken negatively and, hey, can I help? So
Well, and I think, Cheryl, you touched on it earlier. It's how you present it, right? So in that mess with the guys, I went over and talked to them about, hey, use this wrap ring. This is why. And I told them the reason why. You don't want to be pulling it through the webbing because of the heat and the friction. And, and they took it all really well. But it was a complete case of they don't know what they don't know. And, I don't even think they were on YouTube. I don't know. I've never seen a ball of rope before. I mean, it was like think of a cat with a ball of yarn. That's exactly what it looked like, but it was giant, Yeah.
But they're confident. I want that confidence.
Oh, they were very confident that they were on point there with their skills.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Great.
Hopefully they figured out rope bags were a good idea and got some of those at one point.
Well, yeah, the dude didn't even thank me. I don't even think he know what I did. He didn't even thank me. He got down and he was the first one down. Didn't thank me. Just kind of hung out the side, and I was like, "No
I was
problem."
like, I don't know why you were messing with my rope for so long.
What took
Right?
you so long?
Weird. That's awesome. Canyon stories are great. Okay, well, if people would like to reach out to you guys, how can they do that and support the Canyon Adventure Group?
So they can go to our website, and I'll caution everybody, it is under reconstruction right now, but it's at www.canyonadventures.org. And they can donate on there. Also, we encourage them, if they know a nonprofit that we'd be a good fit for, and we can help them raise funds or do anything like that, we would encourage that as well. And then if they're looking for courses, we encourage them to reach out to us for that as well, or any guide trips. We do team building corporate events as well, and any of the stuff that's paid, that all just goes back in to pay for our insurance, permit fees, and equipment for our participants. Everyone is a volunteer. We don't make money, and that's the way we were intended to be, but we want to keep getting people out in the mountains and seeing the change that it has for them. And we appreciate you taking us on today and letting us share what we do, and thank you very much.
Yeah, are your guided courses only in Colorado, or do you guys travel?
No, Southern California.
What did I say? Sorry.
Colorado.
I have viewing on my brain. I'm sorry. Okay, so they're only in Southern California.
Yeah. I mean, we would, if somebody had a location and it sounded like fun and we had enough people signed up, we would travel for a course wherever, as long as we're not violating any city or whatever ordinances. We play completely by the rules. I mean, in Southern California, there's a couple other guide services. I don't know if they have insurance. I know they're not permitted, and I know they're not certified guides through any other whatever. And when I look at their skills, it scares the bejesus out of me. And clients that we take out for the first time, they'll be like, "Why are they doing that? I thought that." And I'm like, "No, that's why you're with me, not with them."
Right.
So it is interesting.
That's good to know.
Yeah, any support, we really appreciate it. And it's been a couple hard years with COVID, so all that kind of stuff comes with a cost. So we're excited about having our course on the 28th and 9th, and then we're getting started again, and we'll start posting some free practices to follow up with that, and doing more courses throughout the year. And Rich is going to be coming to LA probably end of June, so I'll be with him whenever he comes to LA. He usually hangs out here, and I help him with whatever he's doing too. So love Rich Carlson. He's a great resource, and I've really appreciated all he's done to help me get to the level that I'm at. So
very cool. So is there still room in the courses for the 28th and 29th?
yes, there is.
Okay, cool. Cool. Kevin, anything you would like to add?
Nothing else. Thank you for having us. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. How about you, Galen?
No, just thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate your time and putting this on your podcast. Definitely appreciate it. Love talking about this
I want to
stuff.
thank you for reaching out to me and in the email and getting the group on. I was really excited to see what the group does, because I mean, getting people outdoors is just really, really cool, and getting people that never have an opportunity is even more awesome. So thank you guys for doing that. That's really impeccable.
One thing that we didn't really touch on, but when I first started doing this, I had a lot of canyoneers that really kind of pushed back on me because they heard I was going to take out Homeboy. And the thing was, what are you going to do? You know, you're going to teach them to rappel, and they're going to go graffiti all of our stuff. And I didn't believe that. I thought it was the right thing to do. I mean, I felt it was the right thing to do. But, you know, all of us have had experiences with these groups and the change they've had, because now they see the mountains through our eyes, and they see graffiti and they make comments about what they think about that graffiti there. So it really changes people in ways that you don't know. So, you know, we don't need to put this on the podcast because it'll cause too much turmoil, but just for info for you, it's interesting how, you know, people want to be clear sometimes about anything, but when you're actually with those people, it's amazing to see the change that's can come over different people from different environments.
No, I believe it. And if you teach them to respect it, then they're going to teach their friends to respect it. And it's going to trickle down. They're going to teach their kids, their grandkids. I mean, it's definitely going to have a trickle down effect. So I think it's really, really commendable of what you guys are doing. I think it's super awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you again so much. We really appreciate it. Love being
Yeah.
on. Galen's going to be our new marketing director because he made this all happen.
Yay!
knows
Congrats
about
on that
marketing?
promotion.
Yeah, I'm going to double your pay, Galen.
I want a raise.
You're going to double it. I give him
Doubling your paycheck.
Double it. Yeah.
Right? Double it.
No, you guys are awesome. All right. The canyons are calling. We got to go.
Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that episode with Canyon Adventures. If you would like more information about them, you can reach out to them at canyonadventures.org. Like he said, their website is under construction right now, but it should be up and running well soon. Also, if you want more information about the training day that's coming up May 28th and 29th in the Southern California area, email Dean at canyon@canyonadventures.org, and he can give you all the information about that. If you're going to be in the Ouray area, check out the Ouray Canyon Festival, uraycanyonfestival.org. Like I mentioned before, they're having an early bird registration right now. Today is May 18th, so get in, get registered, see you there. If you would like to support me on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/thecanyonsarecalling.com. Patreon's just a secure platform where people can support their favorite creators. And this is a completely self-ran show. So I do all the editing, I do all the research, I do all of the recording all by myself. So if you feel like this is worth it to you, I appreciate any size of donation. So I have several different levels there, or you can also just make a one-time donation of whatever you'd like. It helps me be able to do things like the Ouray, sponsoring the Ouray Canyon Festival and buying equipment for editing and things like that. Also, if you'd like to check out my website, I have more information about courses and resources. So if you're not in the Southern California area or the Utah area, I have links for people all over. I also have links for the people that Kevin talked about, Rick Green, Excursions of Escalante, On Rope with Tom Seeley. Shout out to him. He also just made a generous donation to the podcast through the Patreon support link. So that is amazing. Thank you so much for your support, Tom. If you have an idea for this show, please reach out to me just like Galen did and get your story aired like this one. I could not do this show as well without the recommendations of people like Galen. So reach out to me at thecanyonsarecalling@gmail.com and we can get your story on the show. If you're enjoying this beautiful hand pan music in the background, shout out to Chris Zollinger. He's out of St. George, Utah. I love the hand pan sound. It's so meditative and beautiful. So if you like that, find him on thehandpanman.com. Okay, I'm sure the canyons are calling. We gotta go.